Hello, welcome to the Craft Along with for Adults series hosted by the Wichita Falls Public Library. My name is Rosalie and I'm going to be leading you through this craft. So our second project is going to be a DIY large calendar, one that can be posted on a wall, maybe it's propped up on your desk, really wherever you want. That's going to be using things that you have at home and that is going to be reusable and more eco-friendly. And also a lot cheaper than the ones that you can get from Amazon. So we're going to go over the supplies list first, which is very specific because I only use options that I could find here at the library. So as I go through each one, I'm also going to talk about different options you might have at your home or that you can use to customize. Your most important one, of course, is going to be a picture frame. This one is 23 inches by 28 inches, which you do not have to have those exact measurements. It's just really good to know the size of it for whenever we're doing the math later to block out our calendar. And I left out because this is a poster frame that has solid plastic as far as the insert goes, has backing that's construction paper and double-sided, so I can just decorate that. All of it's going to be pretty easy to use and very lightweight. If you have a glass picture frame instead, or if it's smaller or larger, you can always customize it based on other supplies that you're using and the math that we're going to be doing. All of those are good options. The second thing, and this one is optional, is spray paint for your frame. So if you have a wooden frame or a metal frame, choose your paint wisely. If you have a plastic paint frame, spray paint that bonds to plastic is perfectly fine, preferably a gloss or high gloss finish. And that's going to be something that I do off screen so that I don't torture my poor coworkers. But so a couple of rules of thumb for that spray paint is going to be making sure you're about 6 inches away from what you're spray painting and always keep it moving. And lastly, do at least 2 coats. That way, if there's any bald spots, it'll get more evened out and you don't have to worry about holding the spray can there for too long and getting drips. So that explains a number of our supplies already. Another thing that I'm going to be using, because I'm going to be decorating the backing, is little paper cutouts from scrapbooks. You don't have to use this option. If you have stickers, that'll be a lot easier. If you have wrapping paper that's really pretty, you can wrap the cardboard backing with that. Or if you're really good at painting or just have extra spray paint as well, spray paint the cardboard and it's going to look just fine. Another thing that I will be using, because it's a lot easier for me and maybe a lot easier for you too, are letter stickers. These are going to be pointing out like month, days of the year, of the week, your goals or wish list, things like that. So we'll talk about how to keep them nice and even, but if you want to hand letter because you don't have these, that's an option too. But there's also no shame in going the easy route. And then, last but not least, as far as supplies go, we're going to be using 3x3 inch standard size Post-it notes. You can use whatever color you want to use, and you can make them smaller or larger based on what you have or what you want to do with them, because you can also cut these in half. You can do a lot with them. If you want something that's a bit more eco-friendly and that won't have to be removed all of the time, the static cling dry erase or wet erase plastic sheets that you can just put in each box, those are a really good option, and they're available on Amazon. That will raise up the price of what you're doing, but it's really what you're more comfortable with. Once you have your glass or your plastic covering off of the frame, go ahead and put it back together with the wrapping paper or the backing that you're going to be using to decorate, because that's going to help us mark both the perimeter and do our math for our sticky notes. And now, since I actually have a tripod, I'm going to be turning it over to where it can see the project and what I'm doing with my hands. So make sure you have a nice wide space to work with, and that way we'll be able to keep things nice and straight and even lines. What you'll do now that you have your paper exposed is take a pencil and a ruler and start marking where you want your borders to be based on how wide your sticky notes are. So because I'm using 3-inch sticky notes and 1/8 of an inch washi, that's what I'm going to be marking at each point. You do not have to go all the way to the bottom. I honestly don't suggest it because that might make it a little difficult to use with sticky notes. What I'm going to do is give it just a little lip of about 1/8 of an inch and start my measurements from there. So mark where your 3-inch is going to be for your post-it note, and then mark a 1/8 of an inch for where you're going to be putting your washi or your lines. And you can just keep doing that all the way up to the top. So 1, 2, 3, and then 1/8 of an inch. And you can give it a little more leeway if you don't want to have it too crowded. It's, again, based on what you have. All you want to make sure of is if you're working on the wide side, you have enough space for 5 post-it notes. And if you're working on the long side, you have enough space for 7. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 spots left. 4 spots, so 1 spot left. Here's my 1/8 of an inch. And then 1, 2, and 3. And then at the top, which is going to be a little bit different from how you do the side, you want to measure out another 1/8 of an inch for a border of washi, and then however tall your lettering is, do at least an 1/8 of an inch wider, or 1/4 of an inch wider, really. So our lettering for our days of the week is going to be this big. It's a 1/4 inch wide or tall, so I'm going to be doing at least not quite 1/2 an inch, but somewhere in between there. Again, that's going to vary based on your stickers, totally fine too. And then after you measure that out, do one more 1/8 of an inch measure so you can box that in. So I'm going to be doing that for the length and for the width. What my goal is to start from the bottom left and work my way up and out so that I have space for lists and for where to put my month. But if you want it to be right orientation, just start from the bottom right corner. I'll come back as soon as I have things marked and tell you what to do next. Okay, so I have all of my marks, my guiding marks for the washi and for the post-it notes. The only other thing that I've done is done a layout of the paper cutouts that I'm going to be gluing to the backing. You can do this however you want. You do want to make sure to put down washi before you glue these on so that it doesn't look kind of weird. But other than that, lay it out before, get a good idea of it, take a picture of it with your phone, and that way you can recreate it later. So my demarcations are going to be a little hard to see on camera because I'm using pencil. I wouldn't worry too much about using ink or something that's going to be darker or brighter to contrast with what you're using, because you will cover it up with washi. So I'm not going to do a border around. I'm just going to do the inside lines on each side, and then 2 border tops for that, for where the days of the week are going to go. So, and the best thing about using washi and why you might want to use it instead of a marker is that if you get it wrong, you can just peel it up and restick it. So we'll start with our first mark right here. And you don't want to go up too high, so you want to mark where that top border is going to be. You can just do a nice straight line, preferably with a ruler, but I'm being lazy. And that way you know where to stop. Again, you should probably use a ruler if you are worried about it being not perfect. I am not always that worried about that, so that's why we're just trucking along. Okay, so I have everything done. If you want to use a ruler, make sure that yours is nice and perfectly straight, that's fine. I also didn't bother too much with the edges, but if you want really clean edges for your washi, use a credit card to hold it down while you rip it and it'll come out straight. Now, the only other thing you're going to do to the paper itself is glue on your design that you wanted. And we're back. So I've went ahead and glued down my paper pieces to make it very pretty. As you can see, I didn't go with my original layout. I went with the corners short, but didn't put more in the middle. That's kind of part of this, is learning as you go along. Don't be afraid to change your mind. And you can honestly, even if you change your mind after the fact, you can usually redo it. Like glue stick, you can lift things up pretty easily. Don't worry too much about having it stuck down all the way on the edges if anything's bubbling up, because you're going to have that plastic or that glass on top of it, and it'll hold things nice and steady. But now that we have everything on it, we're going to bring our plastic back. And something I definitely suggest is giving it a good clean before you get started, especially if it's glass, because you want it to be able to stick a little bit better. But this is how we're going to be putting on our lettering. We've got our lines to help guide us as far as keeping it straight, and it's going to be a lot easier, A, to change out if you decide you want to do something different, and B, easier to read on top of these. And the placement is going to matter. Is going to be based on what you want. Just make sure that you're not going too far in, stay about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge so that it doesn't get covered up by the frame. Okay, and we're back. So hopefully with a little less glare, I can show you what has happened. I've put all of our days of the week on there. I put the month, and then on the other side, I did there we go, goals and to-do list. So you can do, honestly, as long as you have this space over here, whatever kind of list you want. It could be a wish list, grocery list, little things that you want to make sure and take care of for that month, and use that space wisely. I just went more practical, but it doesn't have to be if you don't want it to be. You can also put inspirational quotes or things like that on there. So now that we have everything nice and lined out, while the frame is still drying, I'm going to show you how you would set up the month of June using these Post-it notes. And the first thing you want to know is that don't put the sticky on the top, put it on the side. It's going to keep it from flaring too hard. And June 1st is a Monday, so we're going to put that there. And once we have all of our pieces in place, we'll mark the days, the numbered dates. But first and foremost, as you see, if it's not super perfect, like there's a little bit of overlap on your lines, that's fine. So I'll put all of these on our plastic overlay and be right back. And then you just hand letter which month you're using it for. Then, same kind of concept for goals and to-do lists. You're going to cut strips of your Post-it notes and just set them up there. And you can fill those in later as you go. One thing that I like to do for any kind of list like this is to limit how many I put on there so that I don't overwhelm myself like I tend to do when I have unlimited space for lists. So probably only 4 or 5 for goals. And to-do list, same thing. I know that there's going to be some things you have to put on there that you have to get done, and you want to put those at the top, high priority. But try not to put every little thing that you have to do. This space should be for events, due dates, birthdays. Your to-do list should be big things that you need to get done. Another thing too, if you happen to have a glass overlay instead of plastic, you absolutely can use a wet or dry erase marker instead, especially if you have a lighter background so that it'll pop a little bit better, be a little easier to see. I didn't have a light background and I'm using plastic, so that's why we're here, but it's really a matter of taste and what you have available. The way this is supposed to function is you're at your office, you get a call, say, hey, there's going to be a meeting on Thursday. So you just grab your Thursday off of there. Staff meeting. And put it right back. Okay, so definitely spray paint this first. We did this in the morning, so now it's actually dry in the afternoon, and that just makes it a one-day project then. We used this Rust-oleum High Gloss that bonds to plastic. So really just whichever you want to use or whatever you have available, but this stuff is really good for plastic frames. Now I'm going to put it all together and I'll show you what we have finished. Okay, and this is your finished product. So that's it. Again, let us know in the comments what you think. If you have any suggestions, take pictures of what you do and post them because I love to see what y'all come up with. And let us know if you have any other ideas for DIY projects that you'd like to see us do. I always read the comments, it's all good. Until next time, keep crafting, stay safe, stay sane, and we'll see you on the next one.